I really put together an integrative approach to autism treatment, combining lots of different um, strategies and treatments, including a lot of biomedical considerations because of Doug Cottrell. I had the opportunity to work with a family from Israel, and their son was around 7 years old when I first met them, and he had fairly severe, what we call severe autism. He was nonverbal, 7, 8 years old, no language. And he had a repetitious behavior where he licked and blew on his fingertips over and over and over and over. I'll show you. It looks like this. And he would do this most of the day, most of his waking hours. He would do that. He would have very little respite from that. And from having that kind of behavior, he also wasn't able to learn. You could imagine he wasn't able to hold a pen and write. Really hadn't done much learning at all. And the family came to me, and I was working with them, and they had tried already a behavioral approach where they were trying to pull his hands down from his mouth, and that didn't work. That was about 2 years, and that didn't work. They had worked with a program where they tried to just embrace and accept that and actually do it with him and join him and do the same behaviors. The therapist would imitate him. And that actually led to him looking quite curiously at them so they get more eye contact. And it seemed to relax him also, I guess because there weren't people trying to stop him. So that had some benefit, but he was still really caught up in this and lost and wasn't learning. And so Doug came to mind once again in this very difficult and challenging case that seemingly no one in years and years of treatment had been able to help. And I certainly did not have insight on how we might be able to help this little guy. And he very quickly identified, I just told him about the behavior and said what was causing it, how could we help him, and he very quickly identified that in the neck, up at the atlas and the axis, right up in here, that the nerves were pinched and that these nerves were causing a tingling, almost burning sensation in the ends of the fingertips that was so ongoing from the time that the child woke up to the time he would go deeply asleep that he just felt that all day long. And it was all that he could do to blow and look on it, almost as if they were feeling burned. That was the feeling that the child was having, he said. And he gave a very simple remedy. He said that you need some traction in the neck and an adjustment, and that this will help. It was really quite simple. And so I went back to the family, and this is a fairly traditional family from Israel who I'm going to say weren't really that open to clairvoyance and other things, but so they would want all of this confirmed medically. And so they went to, in the States, you have what you call a doctor of osteopathy, which is a medically trained doctor, an MD, but who also has studied osteopathy. It would be like our Canadian chiropractor, but with a medical degree. And so they went to a DO, a doctor of osteopathy, and he took some x-rays on their request, and he confirmed with the x-rays that there was this, not only was there the compression, but there was enough inflammation that would be blocking some nerve passage. So he was willing to do medically supervised traction. And so they did that, and within days, the blowing and licking on the fingertips started to come down in its frequency. Within weeks, it came down more. I'm going to put a number around 50%. So you can imagine the child had been all day, every day, for as long as the family could remember in his life. It has been down about 50%. Within about 4 months, it was down to about 10% of the day only. So in other words, this child now had respite from this compulsion to blow and lick on his fingers for almost the entire day now. And what quickly happened after that, within about a year period of time, is he began to learn language. At the age of 7 years old, began to learn language for the first time. By the way, all of the doctors, his pediatrician had said, it's after 5 years, he's not going to learn language if he hasn't learned language. Like teach him sign language, which they were trying to do, but of course he couldn't because his hand was up here. Now this boy for the first time was learning language. And I can tell you that in his early 20s, he's learned just over 200 words, which is enough for him to kind of communicate his needs and his wants and a few other things like that. It's incredibly changed the course of this child's life. He's able to write, he's able to draw, he's able to do things with his hands. His anxiety and his calmness is much more calm. Also because he doesn't have this feeling of his hands burning all day long. He also doesn't have the tension that he had up in here. He just has a happier life and a better outcome, if you will. So that was for me again another confirmation of the connection between autism and the biology. This is very obvious again. That was. Just a remarkable kind of insight and clairvoyance from Doug Cottrell. And so to this day, my practice in autism is very centered around the biomedical treatment of autism, in large part from those experiences and that influence. So that's really the gift that Doug has been in my life and in my career, and obviously in all of the families that I work with, and those specific ones I told you, whose lives he's touched and made an incredible difference for those children and those families.